As backpacking trips go, this one would be different. It would involve more than just trails of dirt. Isle Royale is 45 miles long and about 9 miles wide. It's the largest island of Lake Superior. Once mined for its copper, it's now a national park with over 170 miles of hiking and backpacking trails. I was invited to spend 5 days and 4 nights there in late May of 2023. So I packed up and set off from trails more familiar to me to a path that I had never walked upon. I would be joining 2 seasoned hikers there, Ken, who had hiked with when he had visited my area, and Brian, who had hiked with in Montana and also on the LWHT. The first leg of my trip ended at Brian's house in Michigan, where I spent the night. The second part of our journey began as we packed up our things and set off. North through Michigan, across the Mackinac Bridge, west through the Upper Peninsula, and then through Wisconsin and into Minnesota. In the wee hours of a very cold morning, we found ourselves in Grand Portage, Minnesota. As light dawned, we made our way to the dock and shivered with a score of other adventurers. We had gathered to climb aboard the shuttle and discover the island for ourselves. After boarding our craft, we set sail and crossed Lake Superior for Isle Royale. Lake Superior has a surface area of over 31,000 miles, making it the largest freshwater lake in the world. At its deepest point, it reaches down over 1,300 feet. Once on the island, we were greeted by park rangers. As we stood in the cold wind, we were introduced to the island and our boundaries were given us. The boat would soon pull out of the harbor, leaving us to the wilds of Isle Royale.
Good ship and true as a bone to be chewed when the gales of November come early. Well, the ship was
on our first day, we would hike from Wendigo Harbor in a mostly southerly direction, following the outline of the western coast before turning easterly and moving toward Feldman Lake, where we would camp for the night. It would be about a 9-mile trek.
Concluding some terms with a couple steel furs, but you left fully loaded for glory.
The initial climb out of Wendigo was steep, but we were way too excited to care. Getting to this point had taken a lot of planning and preparation, and so we were just too excited to worry about a few hills.
Well, wind in the wires made a tattletale sound, and the wave it broke over the railing. And every man
At the top, we paused to soak up our first of the many wondrous views.
November came stealing. The dawn came late and the breakfast.
We returned to the well-marked trail and walked steadily through the morning and into the afternoon, enjoying the rugged beauty spread before us.
Saw freezing rain in the face of a hurricane westward. When supper time came, the old cook came on deck. He said, "Fellas, it's too rough to feed you."
Upon reaching Feldman Lake, we found a good campsite for the night, but we were harassed by the wind, which was blowing cold and hard. After pitching our nylon huts, we decided to walk a mile to Rainbow Cove to escape the wind and to find a more peaceful place to eat dinner.
And there that night when the lights went out of sight in the wreck of the Edmund Fitzgerald.
We finished off our first day with a quiet meal on the rock-strewn shores of Lake Gitsugumi. It was the perfect end to a perfect day. Morning settled on our camp, but the chilly air refused to abandon its grip. As we set off on our day, we encountered moose sheds that had been collected nearby. Evidence of these wary creatures were everywhere. Although moose sightings are common, we didn't have the good fortune of encountering one on our trip. We kept our eyes peeled and our fingers crossed, but it wasn't meant to be.
Broke deep and took water, but all that remained
Wooden planks were a welcome sight as we often walked through boggy and marshy areas that would have soaked our feet through and through.
Superior sings in the ruins of a rice water manger. Oh, Michigan steams like a young man's dream. The islands and bays are for sportsmen. Further below Lake
One of the day's highlights was to reach a scenic vista on one of the pinnacles. From here, we had a grand view of Lake Feldman, where we had spent the night, and of the island forest now spread before us. Then the forest opened up a bit, and we enjoyed a break from the chilly night, which was no match for the warming sun. As we followed Feldman Ridge, we came across a fire tower, which we climbed. It afforded us a nice view of the island and of the deep blue waters off its coast.
Legend lives on from a Chippewa of the big lake they call Kitchikumi.
It was lunchtime, and so in the shadow of the fire tower, we lighted our loads a bit by enjoying meals that had been prepared weeks ago, without a thought as to where they might be eaten.
Never gives up her day when the gales of November come early. Well, the lake it is said never gives up her day when the gales of November come early.
Life on the trail could be unhurried. There's no pace to keep or deadline to make. So a spot in the sun on an otherwise chilly day is the perfect place to do what means the most to you at the time. After some time on the ridgetop, we set out again. The trail led us back into the forest. The absence of lower brush and plant life made visibility perfect along the trail. Signs of an active beaver population were everywhere. From our camp at Feldman Lake this morning, we had hiked westward along the southern side of the island in a fairly straight line to find our camp for the night on the edge of Siskowit Bay. We pitched our tents and made dinner in the increasingly brisk evening. We used my small twig stove because of the abundance of fuel and its ability to provide a little warmth to cold fingers. To ward off the growing cold, we walked down to the bay where there was a fire ring. There we met another couple who had the same idea as us. So we made a fire together and stood around it, warming ourselves with the heat of the fire and the flame of good conversation. As night settled in around us, we retreated to our sleeping mats and waited out the remaining light, lying in our tents, reflecting on another gorgeous day. Light filtered into camp long before warmth did. Stirred by the promise of more adventure, we crawled out of our sleeping gear and made our plans over coffee, hot chocolate, and scrumptious morsels that we had carried along with us.
Legend lives on from the Chippewa down of a big lake they call Kitchikumi. The lake it is said never gives up her dead when the skies of November turn.
Our trip today would begin with northward movement. We would skirt Siskowit Bay and then turn east. Our camp for our third night would be very near our starting point at Washington Creek campsite.
The good ship and true as a bone to be chewed when the gales of November come early. Well, the ship was
Before we got into much hiking, we did some off-trail bushwhacking in order to locate the remnants of an old powder house that Brian and Ked knew was somewhere in the area. The stone remnants that we found spoke of the old copper mining that used to dominate activity on the island. But mining had ended around 1875, and the miners had all sailed home. Having backpacked mostly in the Appalachian region, among trees and underbrush, I found it intensely fascinating to carry my pack along a rocky shoreline.
And the wave it broke over the railing. And every man knew, as the captain did too, 'twas the witch of November came stealing. The dawn came late and the breakfast had away, when the gales of November came slashing. When afternoon came, it was all freezing rain in the face of a hurricane westward.
Water on the island was abundant. This allowed us to carry less weight while we walked and to rest more frequently as we stopped to replenish our supplies.
And the main hatchway caved in. He said, "Fellas, it's been good to know ya." And the captain wired and he had water coming in, and the good ship and crew were in peril. And later that night, when the lights were out of sight, in the wreck of the Edmund Fitzgerald.
Before long, we arrived to Washington Creek Campground. We considered ourselves fortunate to find a shelter vacant and ready for us. It was a spacious, clean setting, and finding it meant that there would be no need to set up or tear down a tent.
Does anyone know where the love of God goes when the waves turn the minutes to hours?
We ate our fill and then spent the remaining daylight hours talking, laughing, and just relaxing. 3 perfect days. Fella can't ask for more.
Might have split up or she might have capsized. She may have broke deep and took water. But
Morning came as predicted. Warm beverages and food was on the menu. It would turn out to be another most splendid day.
Lake Huron rolls and Superior sings in the ruins of a rice water mansion. Oh, Michigan steams like a young man's dream.
As miles go, this would be a relatively short hike. It would consist of an effortless jaunt to the northern edge of the island and then a gentle easterly turn toward Huggington Cove, where we would spend the night.
And iron boats go as a mirror to snow, for the gales of November remember.
We were welcomed along the way by clear trails beneath our feet, scenic beauty around us, and crystal blue skies above our heads.
Old Hall in Detroit they pray, the Maritime Sailors Cathedral. Church
In the
bells
warming sun, we
chime
stopped on a
for
steady climb to shed some layers and rehydrate ourselves. It seems that we were finally getting a welcomed break from the steady chill we had been experiencing for days as the mercury was making its own ascent up the glass of the thermometer.
Lake it is sad, never gives up her dead when the skies of November turn gloomy. Well, Lake it is sad, never gives up her dead when the gales of November come early. Well, the lake it is sad, never gives up her dead.
When we reached the northern shore, I was taken back by the beauty of Lake Superior. Her waters seemed crystal clear with the final remnants of snow still clinging to its shore. The jutting rocks were just too inviting not to climb upon and to explore. When we reached camp, I walked out into the frigid waters to soothe my unwashed feet. It was at the same time refreshing and breathtakingly cold.
Legend lives on from the Chippewa down of a big lake they call Kitchikumi. The lake it is said never gives up her dead when the skies of November turn gloomy. With a load of
Huggington
iron
Cove proved to be my favorite spot of the week. Its inspiring scenery would stay with me long after leaving the island. It was as if the island had saved its very best for last. I pitched my tent overlooking the cove and the vast waters of Lake Superior for what proved to be the most memorable, most scenic camping site I had ever enjoyed to this day.
back for some mill in Wisconsin.
As daylight waned, we watched a sea otter play in the waters inside the cove. My fondest of memories of Isle Royale will always include Huggington Cove.
Concluding some terms with a couple steel fights, but you left fully loaded for Cleveland. And later that night when the ship's bell rang, could it be the north wind they'd been feeding?
As our final day dawned, we took our time tearing down camp. We only had about 4 miles to walk and several hours to get back to Wendigo Harbor. We didn't feel rushed, and I think we were all a little reluctant to leave such a glorious place.
'Twas the witch of November came stealing. The dawn came late and the breakfast had away, when the gales of November came slashing. When afternoon came, it was all freezing rain in the face of a hurricane westward. When supper time came, the old cook came on deck. He said, "Fellas, it's too rough."
But finally, we left camp and made our way back to the harbor. My wanderlust had been most thoroughly satisfied. I had come to Isle Royale to discover why so many before me were drawn to the island's rugged features and idyllic charm. I now knew what it was that brings so many here. We returned to the harbor and would soon board our vessel and set sail upon waters as quiet as glass. Isle Royale had lived up to its name. It was indeed a regal place of undeniable, unmistakable charm.